All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. And I'm super excited to have Dana Snyder here on the podcast with me again. Dana, welcome.
Oh, hey, good to be here again. Thanks for having me.
So, I would love if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do. And this is kind of a long question. And also, where did you start? What was the path that got you to what you're doing right now?
Yeah, of course. So, my jam is I love working with nonprofits on amplifying their missions and their messages through social media advertising on Facebook and Instagram, and really building sustainable communities of supporters for them through monthly giving programs. So, that's through my monthly giving mastermind. So, those are my two jam fortes, I say, within the nonprofit sector. And I had my business, Positive Equation, for coming up on 6 years this year, which
Woo,
is
congrats.
still crazy every time that I say it out loud. And it's morphed, right? Like I think all businesses tend to do over time. And I started working for a nonprofit right out of college. And so I was in the position of being on a small team. There's only 4 of us. It was an organization based in Sarasota, Florida. If anybody vacations there, now I realize it's such a vacation city. I was very lucky to live there and did not take full advantage of the beautifulness that Sarasota is. But so I worked for the nonprofit. Then I worked for-profit companies in New York City and did the agency world, and realized after years of doing that my heart was still in the nonprofit space. And I really wanted to take all of the experiences that I had working for the Sports Illustrateds and the Honest Companies and Delta Airlines of the world and put those practices into place in the nonprofit sector. And so I left New York City, moved to Los Angeles because why not move to the West Coast and start a company?
Yes. Obviously.
There was really no reason besides I was like, I've never lived on the West Coast. Why not try?
Amazing.
And then I've never looked back.
That is awesome. I love that you have experience in both worlds because I think that just makes you so incredible at what you do. If you think now and you were working, if you've run your business for 6 years, you were working in corporate prior to that. So lots has changed in the social media
Yes.
world in the last 6+ years. But what are a couple maybe even strategies or mindsets that you were seeing in the corporate space, in the advertising or the marketing world that you were working in that you don't see often in the nonprofit sector?
I think the biggest one is I would say 99% of for-profit companies have a dedicated social media person.
Mm,
And that is huge. I think we often in the nonprofit sector wear this badge of, I wear so many hats.
mhm.
And it comes, I think, with stress for sure, but also
Yes.
there might be a little bit of, I don't know, we can't hire someone for budgetary
Mm,
reasons or whatnot, or we don't need a separate social media person. And that is not the case. And a lot of times I wrote a blog post about this, like 5 signs you need to hire a social media manager, because if you don't have somebody dedicated and it's not your skill set, if you're not passionate about it, that's going to show through and it's going to become secondary or third or fourth or whatever, really far down on your priority list. So I think overall mindset is for-profit companies realized very quickly that we need to have a dedicated social person. And I think that mindset's even changed, where I think it used to be, okay, let's hire the 22-year-old straight out of college, or let's have an intern run my social media, versus now, over a decade later, it's we need somebody senior. We need somebody who understands strategy. We
mm,
need somebody who understands analytics. On my podcast, Missions to Movements, I just released an episode recently with Haley from the Red Cross, the American Red Cross, and Trevon Williams from the NAACP. And a big part of our conversation was around staffing, was around
mhm.
having the team to be able to really get your message out there and do it well. And they said that was important for us. We needed to think about, how do we create those budgetary line items? How do
Mhm.
we deliver that message to our board members and make sure they know that this is a very important position for us for X, Y, and Z?
Mhm.
And that's not only on the amplification of the message for acquisition, but just as important on retention, right? If somebody's
Mhm.
messaging you on social and there's crickets, what is that saying about your organization? So it goes twofold. So I would think that really is the biggest difference that I see um, between the two.
Yeah, that investment in that social media person. And it's so interesting that you said that like organizations are like, let's hire the 22-year-old or like the college intern. I legit have had those same thoughts for like for my company because I don't particularly love social media and I don't know any of the like things that I should be doing. So I'm like, let me just hire a young person. Like they know how to do that. But actually, that like no, just because somebody is young in age does not mean that they are a specialist in like a particular marketing strategy. Because using it for your, you know, for your friends and for your personal use is a lot different than using it
Yes.
strategically. Um, so, okay. So if an organization is like, you know, sort of pushing back or wearing all the hats and saying like, I'm just going to do it myself, like why is social media so important for nonprofits right now?
Oh my goodness, for numerous reasons. Um, the first thing is just think about your own personal life, right? If a friend recommends, and make this a restaurant or a hotel or a product, anything, usually you are going to one of two places. You are searching for their website online, or you are looking for them on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or
Mhm,
whatever platform is your favorite of choice.
mhm,
And so usually it's a first impression. And
mhm,
if you're not there, there becomes this maybe subconscious lack of credibility to
mm,
say, or if they do have a profile, but nothing's been shared in a long time, it's like, oh, do they still exist? Are they still
mhm,
around? What are they actually doing? But if there's continuous content and it's updated and there's engagement happening and there's conversations, it's like, oh, okay, this is neat. This could be something that I want to be a part of. Like, let me dive in and do some more research. So that's number one, I think,
mhm,
is just having something that's a first impression. Two, social media. And I think we forget about this because oftentimes we're just like pushing content out all the time and we're not doing the engaging part. We're
mm,
forgetting the social part of social media, essentially.
mhm,
And it's
mhm,
having those one-to-one relationships and communication with supporters. And a really powerful instance of this is, so I had a virtual baby shower with a bunch of work colleagues.
mhm.
And as they went around and introduced themselves and they were asked the question, how did you meet Dana? And it was so funny, Stephanie. I think like 75% of them said Instagram.
Instagram.
And they're like, and we haven't even met in person. And they're
Mhm,
like, one person actually mentioned, which it's funny because I've hired her numerous times and I've worked with her on like client accounts. And she was like, so funny. She's like, I never pictured myself attending a virtual baby shower for someone I've never met before. She's like, but it actually feels like I've known you forever.
mhm,
So you can truly build those really unique relationships. I think another example, and I'm just speaking for personal experience here, but during Giving Tuesday, I was looking for organizations to support within the fertility space.
mhm,
And so I came across Revolve. And so they're an organization supporting fertility and providing education. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give to this organization. I did my research. First went to Instagram, liked what I saw. They had something relevant about Giving Tuesday. I went to their website. Then I did a whole reel about why I donated to them and why it was
mhm,
important to me and my identity. That led to them reaching out to me as a DM. Can we reshare your reel? Then
mhm,
it led to, hey, I really like what you guys are doing. I'd be interested in being on your board. Can I get in contact? Like that whole
mhm,
dialogue took place on a social media platform.
mhm,
So I think we oftentimes have this surface level approach to thinking we're just going to post and put it out there and people are going to see it without thinking
mhm,
about all the possibilities of a deeper relationship that can be built. So I know I just gave you a long-winded answer, but I think it's a really powerful resource, especially in how virtual our world is now.
100%. I agree. I mean, yeah, I feel the same way. I definitely have people I would consider legit friends that I have met on Instagram and other
Yeah,
platforms. So I'm totally with you, 100%. And I think that for like it can feel like social media is just checking a box, but it really is about and that's I feel like what you're talking about. Let's just put content out there. We check the box, we're good. But it is about so much more than that. And I love how you just talked about the reel and then on the board and that sort of chain of like building a relationship because somebody I just interviewed for the podcast yesterday was talking about how her organization, she's an ED, have built like multi-million dollar corporate partnerships starting with social media. Like
absolutely. That happened.
that's pretty
So
powerful.
I had Cubby Graham, who's the social lead at Charity Water,
Mhm.
on Missions to Movements. And he gave a great example because the whole premise of the show, which is to take people behind the feed, sharing marketing strategies. And so I asked him, they did this brilliant campaign for World Water Day in 2022 and with Pantone as a
Mm.
corporate partner. And I was like, that was such a great idea, going to like the color of different water types and like what that means. Very visual. And I was like, how long did that take? And he's like, Dana, it happened through Instagram DMs 2 weeks before World Water Day. And we rushed and got it together. And like, those are the things that you would never think about, right? You're like, oh, they must have planned this for months. And it's like so corporate-y and they must have gone through so many red tape, right? No, they reached out through an Instagram DM because I thought it'd be a cool idea and it took place.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So do not sleep on social media.
Yeah.
I feel like you and your social media, you're such a good example, I feel like, of obviously this is your job, but you're also really good at it for your own business and your own thought leadership and your own work. I'm always every time you post something, I'm like, man, she is so timely and so relevant and so insightful. I feel like every time I go on LinkedIn, I'm like, wait, this just happened like out in the world yesterday. And already she's got this like amazing, like very insightful post about this. So you are killing it. Tell
Oh,
me all
thanks.
of your secrets. Do
Okay.
you
Well,
know? Yes and no. Tell me.
honestly, a big one, and this is for anyone, is I really have focused on, and I teach this too, a primary and secondary social platform. I am not on all the things. You don't
Hmm.
need to be on all the things. I think that we get overwhelmed and so consumed with the next hot thing. I am
Hmm.
not on Twitter. I explicitly have a
Mm.
pinned tweet, and in my bio, it says, I am not here. Come find me on LinkedIn.
That's a
And
good idea though.
yeah,
Like
and
you're not just not there. You tell
yep,
go find me where I'm at. Okay, love it.
exactly. I did the same thing for my podcast, actually. So I figured, okay, people might search for Missions to Movements on Instagram. So I took the handle Missions to Movements, and
Mhm.
there's one post that is the podcast cover, but it says, like, thanks for showing up to watch the show, but I'm not here. Follow Positive Equation is where I give all of my
Mm.
show updates because I
Mhm.
didn't want to have multiple Instagram accounts because that's a headache.
Yes.
Um, but I'm a very big data person. I didn't just randomly select what was going to be my primary and secondary. And I will tell you, they are YouTube and LinkedIn, and actually Instagram is a third.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
And the reasoning for that is I use Google Analytics, which
Mhm.
anyone can use. It's totally free. Just go to search Google Analytics. You can set up an account if you don't have one yet. And there's a section called acquisition. If you click on that, you can dive deeper into how people are getting to your website. And there's a social section. So if you
Mhm.
click social, then it dives down even deeper and it will show you the breakdown of what channels are people coming to you from. So
Mm.
for me, Facebook is usually always first. And I caveat saying that because I run social media ads. So that's
Mm.
why that's happening. So that's not a totally accurate representation, but I'm not just looking at the first number you're going to see is the traffic. Like how many people, how many unique people are coming to your site from that channel. I'm not actually as interested in that number. I'm interested in what channel is sending the most quality people. And you can
Mm,
find that by looking at which channel has the lowest bounce rate. So, meaning people aren't coming to your site and then immediately leaving.
mhm,
Anything that's below 50% is usually great. So low bounce rate. And I'm looking at what's the time spent on my site. So if somebody's just coming for 30 seconds, that's not a real quality engaged person. How long are they staying? So I realized when I was doing the research on people who came from YouTube were spending upwards of 5 minutes on my website. That's
wow.
huge. And they were looking at
Yeah.
multiple pages, three,
Mhm,
4, 5 pages. So although YouTube was lower on the amount of people, that's because I haven't been doing a ton of YouTube videos
mhm,
consistently. So that was a note for me to be like, okay, like this makes sense. When you're on YouTube, people are searching with an intent. They're finding my content. They're finding it valuable. It's long form. They're trusting me. They're therefore going to my site and spending time. So
mhm,
that's how, I mean, same thing with LinkedIn, and then Instagram, I kind of love just playing with.
mhm,
So, but that's how I think about my strategy. I'm not trying to be everywhere. And then once you identify those platforms that you should be on by looking at that data, then I'm asking the question of, okay, what is that platform specifically trying to do? Like from a
mhm,
business standpoint, right?
mhm,
What are their leaders doing? What are their new products? What are their new features? So reels aren't that old when you think about it.
mhm,
And the reason for that was because Adam, their like head guy, came out and was like, our biggest competitors are TikTok and YouTube. What does that
mhm,
mean? That means they're going to start to prioritize video content, right? So, really thinking about not just peppering every social platform with the exact same content anymore, that copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, but thinking strategically about what content works best where. Um,
mhm.
who is my audience there? What's going to serve them best? Like I'm not going to I'm not going to post the same thing to LinkedIn that I'm going to post to Instagram because it's just a
Mhm,
different demographic and those platforms are completely different.
mhm. I love that because as someone who is not like super huge fan of social media, like the thought of having to get on Twitter makes me like, I don't know, very anxious.
Yeah.
So I can understand, especially with nonprofits with limited resources, like we can't possibly be amazing on every single platform. So I love choosing a couple, choosing two. Um, with nonprofits, I know every single organization is different. Everyone's goals are different. But are you seeing like most nonprofits have this as their primary, this as their secondary, or does it really like, is it truly dependent upon the organization?
I'd say it's truly different. Although I would say probably the most common that I always still hear are Facebook and Instagram.
Mm, mm-hmm,
Although I think people are definitely missing out on YouTube
mm-hmm,
because it's owned by Google. And
right.
it's not YouTube's not really a social media platform, to be fair. It's a search engine. And if you are the reason that I bring it up is when you are Google searching for something, you'll notice YouTube videos will often pop up.
Mm-hmm,
So if you have a cause, you are thought leaders, you are experts in that cause area, you could be ranking for certain phrases and
mm-hmm,
keywords utilizing YouTube. But the most common that I see all the time are Facebook and Instagram.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so now our organizations have identified their primary and their secondary platforms that they're going to spend time on and work on not just posting but also engagement. Um, so what now? I know that there's obviously organic social where somebody is posting, engaging, it's actually someone is actually doing it kind of one by one. It feels slightly more manual. And then we have paid. Tell us about tell our listeners about the difference between organic social, paid social, and when makes sense to start thinking about paid.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, organic is most of the time going out to your current supporters. The caveat I will say to that is reels, specifically to Instagram, are designed to reach outside of your supporters. Especially if you're just posting them to the reels feed and not to your own feed. There's an option for that when you publish. So you're thinking about nurturing your existing audience versus paid does an exceptional job at allowing you to customize the audiences that you want to reach.
Mm,
So that can be reaching out to a brand new, I relate to them as cold audiences. So they don't know you likely, but you
mhm,
can kind of filter and go down from the 300 plus million people that we have in the
mhm,
United States. Or, I mean, you can
mhm,
target all over the world,
mhm,
technically.
mhm,
But let's just say it's the United States. And I could filter and say, okay, I want to reach people who have an interest in charity and philanthropy and who have an interest in animals and or dogs or wildlife or whatnot, or whatever your cause area is. I was
mhm,
just working with an organization yesterday, and in their case, it's around education and mentoring and students. And so that would be kind of what they're looking for. And you can also build lookalike audiences with paid. So let's say you have a good amount of um, Instagram engagement or followers or on Instagram, or you have an email list you can upload. You can create lookalikes from those people, and Facebook will go find similar people that have similar interests to those that you can reach out to with your message. The other thing that I like to say about ads is organic is 1 to 3% maybe of your supporters actually see your content.
mhm,
So you might think you are sharing the same message over and over again, and you sound like a broken record, but I promise you
mhm,
that people are missing it.
mhm,
With social ads, you can really target the right audience with the right piece of content at the right time that you want them to see it. For example, it's a great funnel progression. So I like to teach this progression of let's do a video to raise brand awareness and visibility and education about your organization. Then you can actually retarget people who watched your video for X percentage. So let's just say people that watched our video, 50% of our video. So now you have a much smaller subset, and you can retarget them with your next message. And then you can retarget them again within the ask, right? So you can kind of build this funnel, this pipeline.
mhm,
There's so many cool things you can do with ads dependent upon what your goal is. Um, there was an organization that emailed me, which I love when these things happen. She was like, "Hey, I'm on your email list. You don't know me, but I've taken the webinar you taught about lead generation ads." And she had like over 600 leads for less than 50 cents a lead. It was amazing in building her email list. So you can grow your email list strategically. You can do donations. You can grow your visibility. You can sell tickets for an event. Like there's so many different objectives that you
mhm,
can look to kind of like amplify things through ads.
mhm. I have to say, I obviously work with a lot of nonprofits and I see all of their financials. And because of that, I know that literally none are spending any money on Facebook advertising. Um, why is that?
Fascinating.
Yeah, why? Is that
I
just like, do I
think
have a weird sample size of people that aren't doing it? But like, I don't know of any, literally no organizations that are doing Facebook ads.
I think there's a lot of myths that go into it. One of them being ads are expensive. And I can tell you, like, one of the teachings that I teach is visible reach in a week. It's a $27 course. And I am about to launch a challenge with it right now. So I'm running them myself. And Stephanie, it's amazing. So basically in this reach campaign, and I'm going to look and give you real numbers right now in my ads manager account, I have spent $14.89. Okay. And I have reached over 12,000 people. My cost for reaching per 1,000 people is $1.17. Now, you can't get that with stamps, right?
Good. Oh my gosh. Yes. Just thinking about direct mail. You're right.
You
You're right.
can't. And so that right there alone is like proof in the pudding. I'm less than $15, everyone. And that's 12,841 people to be specific, that I'm reaching. And so I think we have this mindset of ads are expensive. They're not going to work is another one. And the biggest reason why ads don't work is because in my experience, most of the time, organizations want that quick donation. So they're running donation ads to a cold audience who knows nothing about them, and they're asking for $50. And it's like, of course they're not going to give to you. They have no idea who you are. This is the first time they've ever seen you. But then we think they don't work. No, they don't work because would you
Right.
donate like the first time you ever heard from somebody? Probably not. So we need to warm them up, right? That's why there's this like cadence of building ads. And so doing that lead generation, get their email first. Then you can give them this lovely welcome sequence into who you are, right? Do the video first so they can watch it, then retarget people who watch the video. So there's lots of strategies that come into play with that. I would say also for anybody who is running ads, something to note is if your ad, this is going a little bit into data, if your click-through rate is high. So there's a stat called CTR, click-through rate, which means they are leaving the ad, they're leaving Facebook, they're going to your website, wherever you're sending them to. Right now, if it's above 1%, that's pretty good. If they're leaving Facebook and you're not seeing conversions, the problem's not your ad. The problem's where you're sending them to. Is your form too long, right? And that's a whole other like website conversation of friction. So, oh my gosh. I mean, I would say, know that ads do not have to be expensive. I think I could talk about ads forever. But
It
yeah,
sounds like go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, you're fine. Yeah. I was just going to say they don't have to be expensive. Once you get in there, I think the look of ads manager can be intimidating, but once you get rolling, it just becomes like, oh, I get it. I select this, I don't select this, and keep going. You just get into a groove and a rhythm.
I feel like in the entrepreneurial space, and we have worked with a lot of like online businesses, online course creators. The messaging around ads like 5 or 6 years ago was like, it's like an ATM, basically. You put money in and then it returns like 3x what you put in, and then you're a millionaire. And that was like, I have seen it with my own eyes. That is legit what was happening like 5 or 6 years ago. That's not the case anymore. And it sounds like the way that you're describing it, it's really a long game. It's not an ATM. It's a long-term strategy for getting more people into your like orbit. And I think you're right that even if people who work in the nonprofit space don't know about what Facebook ads was doing 5 or 6 years ago, it still is like, I don't know, like you're saying, I think that people are expecting a quick win, but it's not. It really sounds like it's a long game, because what you described, like, okay, let's bring these people, sort of let them know about us. And then the email sequence informing them about who we are and what we do. And then asking for the donation, like much, 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 much later after we know each other. That doesn't happen in like the course of a couple of weeks. And I feel like, yeah, if people want the quick win, this is not, I don't know if there are any quick wins, right? Everything's about building relationships.
Yeah, but I would say there are ways. So you do have an existing warm audience built. So you can just target that warm audience first. So if you do have an event, but then again, you got to remember, okay, let me talk to these people like they do know who I am. This is not the first time they've heard of me. So you can target your Facebook followers, people who have engaged with you. So they know you. So there's an example I ran for my monthly giving mastermind program, and I did see 27 times return on investment
Wow.
because I wasn't looking for mass quantity of applicants, right? I just wanted to fill
Mhm.
this like small group. I
Mhm.
sent out very targeted, specific ads to my warm audience. It cultivated enough of what I needed to get
Mhm.
the result. So in that case, yeah, it can be a quick win. And that was
Mm.
over a couple of weeks. So it just
Wow.
really depends on your strategy. That could be similar for an event. So let's just say, look, you're sending out all the emails, but emails get lost, right? In spam, or they bounce, or we just are inundated. We send out our direct mail responses, but maybe I just don't take action, right? The Facebook ads can be that extra reminder of, oh, I meant to do that, right? And you're just
Mhm.
retargeting your warm audience with that direct click, boom, buy my ticket, done. So
Mhm.
it definitely can be. I think it can work
Interesting.
both ways.
Mhm. That's interesting. And well, I just think about like, yeah, it being that sort of extra reminder that's cheaper than the US Postal Service. And, you mentioned that before, because maybe you would have sent some sort of postcard reminder, but that's going to be more expensive than running a Facebook ad. I feel like, um, yeah, I would
Also harder to
definitely,
track.
yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Mail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. Okay. So, our listeners are sold. I'm sold. I'm like, okay, we need to talk offline. Tell me what I can do with ads for my company. Um, so our listeners are sold. They're like, okay, I can see the use of ads. It doesn't have to be expensive, but I still feel like a little bit intimidated on who's actually going to set these up, who's going to manage it. How do we like, yeah, do we need to hire somebody to do this, or how do we kind of get rolling?
So you can. So a couple different things that I like to suggest. If you want to go the DIY route, I do have very step-by-step courses for visibility, so reach ads, lead generation ads, and donation ads. So if those are three of your goals, those are all accessible on positiveequation.com if you want to learn and run them yourself. And they're all very doable. Like an hour or less for each of those, just because I understand time and bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
If you are someone who is like, that's fine and dandy, but I will never do it, or I really want somebody that has greater expertise, then I highly recommend utilizing a third party. So
Mm-hmm.
whether that's a consultant or an agency or part-time support, right, for that. But I would recommend, I think the other reason why I would just recommend the courses is so you can be a little bit more dangerous in understanding
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say I have looked to hire people, and I'm like, you don't know what you're doing, because I know
Because
ads, and I know enough to
Mhm.
be like, oh, you shouldn't be in this business.
Yeah.
And that's scary. And that happens. And I think
Mhm.
the feeling of getting burnt is real.
Mhm.
And if you are just all in trusting, and because ads can have this lingo that can be confusing, you're oftentimes like, yep, they know what they're talking about. I'm just going to give you my money, go. And I've had a friend in the female entrepreneurship space who spent like 15 grand and saw nothing. Like that
Yeah,
happens. That
it
happens.
does. It does.
And I don't want that to happen to you. Listeners, I do not want that to happen to you. So I do recommend educating yourself enough. Even like listening to this podcast is probably beneficial. Like,
Mhm.
but take it a little step further to ask yourself, okay, what do we want these ads to do? What
Mhm.
are our goals? And then ask that person to explain, how are you going to get us there? Right? Who are we, like,
Mhm.
talking about targeting, talking about objectives. That's why I even think watching courses so that you can be like, okay, I understand what I'm looking at here when they're providing you a report, and you can
Mhm.
ask those details, because you mean, you're looking at the financials, right? You want to make sure that the money that you're spending is going towards a good place. The other thing I will say is I do like VIP ad days occasionally throughout the year for organizations where I do help run them.
Mhm.
and ads need testing. It
Mhm.
is rare when you have an immediate hit that just rocks. What
Mhm.
we are always looking to do is test audiences, test copy, test content, and see what is going to work. And that's the same for my business too. I've run ads that don't work. But then I ask why.
Mhm.
And then I can do some detective work. And I am totally honest with clients about that too. Is like, hey, we're going to test this. We usually do a lower spend. We're looking to see, okay, we're testing our audience here. We're testing our copy here. Ooh, this one did really well. Let's go ahead and amplify that one and add more spend. So
Mhm.
that I would say would be my recommendation is if you're down to DIY, do that. Educate yourself, even if you don't want to DIY it, so that you can be educated about the process to work with somebody else.
Mhm. When you were talking about the person that was burned and dropped like 15 grand on a Facebook ad company and ad spends, I relate real hard to that.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
Literally like nothing and spent so much money and so much time. And I realized exactly what you said because this was like a pretty well-known company and this is not my wheelhouse. And I just sort of like was like, well, this is not my wheelhouse. This is your wheelhouse. So take my money and do
Yeah.
what you need to do. And I learned after that, though, I think I did buy some sort of like, you know, Facebook ad for beginners. So I at least could understand like, what are we even talking about here if I were ever to do it next time? So like,
Yeah.
I did it in the wrong order. Anyone listening should do it in the other order where you educate yourself first before you think about hiring somebody because I'm still kind of sore about that. And that was like well over a year
Oh,
ago. It was
I'm so sorry. That's awful.
oh, such a bummer. Yeah. No fun. But it doesn't have to be like that. And you have a resource or like a mini course or tell us what resource you have specifically for nonprofits.
Yeah, I would say start with if you are brand new to ads, visible reach in a week is a 30-minute course to increase your visibility in literally 7 days. Your budget is $1 to $3 a day, very low risk. The course itself is $27. Again, very low risk. It is meant to, and what I always hear from people is there's 3 videos. That's it. It is not
Mm,
meant to not be completed. I think that's
yeah.
the biggest thing is I want you to watch the videos and complete the process. And what everybody says is this completely eliminated my intimidation of ads manager. I now understand what I'm looking at. I feel comfortable in the platform and I understand like the step by step components to build an ad. And that's what it's meant to do. It's
Mhm,
meant to get you that's the campaign I was talking to you about where I've only spent $15 and have reached many people. It's literally just to remain top of mind, which we forget so much about.
mhm,
There's this amazing graph that I like to show in presentations that has this huge hockey stick where we all run ads October, November, December, because
mhm,
that's the main giving time of the year. That's also
mhm,
usually when ads are the most expensive because we're competing
mhm.
against everybody for
Everyone.
Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Small Business Saturday and all the things.
Mhm,
And so we're like, again, they're expensive. Why aren't they working? And it's like, we forgot
mhm,
about the whole rest of the year where
mhm,
this is like prep, building time, grow your email list, remain top of mind. This is all those people like Q1, Q2 is an awesome time to run ads because you just likely had an influx of gifts at the end of the year. You have an influx of engagement of new people supporting you. Now, like, let's retarget them. Remember us? Remember all the impact, the cool work we're doing? Let me share some cool stories with you. Like, don't forget about us.
mhm,
This is and oftentimes, right? Don't make it an ask. Let's just say your executive director was featured on a podcast or did a speaking gig. Show a clip from
mm,
that.
mhm,
Have the ad be sending them to the show notes of the blog of the podcast episode, right? Like
mhm,
it's continuously building credibility, it's building trust, it's keeping people top of mind so that when you are with friends sitting around a dinner table and a topic pops up, you're like, oh, you know what? That reminds me of that organization because I just saw them on Facebook.
mhm.
All right. Or I just saw that ad. Or it's like, hey, my birthday came up. Facebook still prompts us whenever we have birthdays to create a Facebook fundraiser. And I was
Mhm,
like, who should I create a Facebook fundraiser for? Oh, you know what? That organization I just saw, right? It's
mhm.
moments like that of why you run these very low risk, low cost ads. So visible reach in a week is where I would say to start.
That's fantastic. I think that is such a good point. And the other thing I just want to like think about is, or just share with our listeners is like, put this in your budget. Like this is part of your
Yeah,
budget. This is an investment. This is one of those line items that has an ROI attached to it. So like put some
absolutely.
money into it so that it doesn't feel like, oh, we have to like take funds from somewhere else to be able to try this out. No, like put it in the budget, then you've got it. You've got this money to, I don't want to say play with, but to, to try out because this could be a huge, huge investment, very worthwhile investment for your
Yeah.
organization.
And I spoke with Mark Dobkins a while ago. He's the founder of Forever Projects in Australia. And he said something so profound to me. They do advertising. And he said, Dana, we kind of have to have empathy for the platform to be able to, it's learning. There's literally like a dot and it says learning next to it because Facebook's the algorithm is learning
Mm,
about your audience and it's seeing, okay, like who is engaging with this ad. Okay, let me go out and find more people like that. We have to give it time. And he said, we don't hire someone and fire them the second day
mhm,
that they're around if something went wrong.
mhm,
We give them time, we give them empathy, we test
mhm,
different things, we give
mhm,
feedback, right? And he said the same thing with a platform. He goes, we run an ad, and if it's not working in 24 hours, we usually turn it off. That is not what you should do, right? It needs time. It needs to be able to reach a certain amount of people to be able to learn. And so we get a little bit like click happy and be like, oh, nope, turn it off. Like it's not working before we let
mhm.
it actually do its thing. So I just loved his perspective on that.
I love that too, especially when we think about like some of the low cost options that you were talking about, spending like a few bucks a day. An employee costs way more than that. And we give
Of
them
course.
empathy and patience and let them sort of figure out their job. And it's much more expensive to do that than it is to let Facebook figure it out for a couple dollars a
And
day.
I think what's fascinating is, and you see this, I'm sure, on budgets, is organizations will spend 5 or 6 figures putting together an event. And we're okay when that event breaks even.
Yes.
And that is wild to me.
Hmm.
I'm like,
That's such
why
a
are
good
you
point.
doing that event? Why?
I know.
And think
I
about
know.
all the time
The time that's not
that
even counted in
that's
that.
not
Yeah.
even counted, right? Of your team that went into producing that versus, oh my gosh, if you had that kind of money and you spent it on ads, you would absolutely be getting incredible data back. You could grow a crazy email list. You could nurture all those people. I mean, that's very interesting. I hope this poses some questions of listeners to think about in
Mhm.
their own organizations.
100%. And you're only with an event that costs maybe $100,000 to put on, you're only getting in front of a few hundred people
Correct.
for like a short period of time, 3 hours maybe. And then those people go home and that's that.
Right.
And I have seen that so many times. And I have asked the question because as a CFO, I'm like, the math isn't mathing. Like this is not working. And I've
Yeah.
asked the question, can we just talk about why we're doing this? That's the way we've always done it. We've always done this golf event. We've always done this. We've always done it this way. Like, well, is that really like the best option right now?
And
But that's usually the answer.
and let me tell you, her team is brilliant. I am a client of the organization, and it has been a game changer having the fractional CFO and going through those and asking those questions. I feel so much more educated about my numbers. And to your point, we've built out, okay, this is what I'm looking to spend on ads. This is what we're looking for in our return. It's a line item for me.
Mhm.
It wasn't before. Before I was kind of ad hocking it. But now because I understand my cash flow and I understand my profit and loss, I understand all these things that I'm like, okay, we can work with this amount and we're still really safe.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, when you put it into your plan, it doesn't feel as risky. It
Right.
doesn't feel like you're just pouring money down like the Mark Zuckerberg tube,
Yeah.
which I hear people talk about all the time. Like, no, we have a plan, we have a
Yeah.
budget, we're going to stick to it, and let's see what it can do. So I love that. I feel like I could keep chatting with you, but I know we need to wrap us up. And so the one question that I like to ask all of our guests is, what does a prosperous nonprofit look like to you?
Ooh, what a good question. What does a prosperous nonprofit look like? I think a prosperous nonprofit invests in their team. I have just done some thought leadership work with an incredible CEO. She just retired from a big organization. Um, she grew it in 8 years from 3 million to over 200 million in annual revenue. And
Wait,
she
and how many years?
eight,
Oh my God.
yeah, 3
Wow.
million to over 225 million, I believe it is.
Wow.
And she did that. I'm working with her on her LinkedIn content strategy because she's starting her own business. And she did it. One of the key things was by investing in her team and giving them new
Wow.
trainings with new mindsets, her team and her board, mind you. And I just thought that was brilliant.
So brilliant. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that example. I have to tell you, I've asked that question to probably like 10 people that I've done interviews with for this new iteration of the podcast, and almost every answer has been different, but they have almost all come back to people.
People. Yeah.
I think that's so interesting. Nobody has mentioned anything about money, finances, cash reserve. It's all just like it's all the people. So I love that. And that example is awesome.
Proof is
Um,
in the numbers.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's so true. That's an incredible story. Dana, thank you so much for being here. You have a podcast. Where can our listeners who love podcasts go and listen to your podcast with lots of amazing guests and all kinds of good content on there? Where can we find you?
Yes, which you will soon be on.
Yay.
Missions to Movements. And you can find it on your favorite places to listen. So Apple, Spotify, or just check out positiveequation.com and you can find it there too.
Awesome. Missions to movements. Got it. And tell us again that the Visible Reach in a Week is your 30-minute mini ads course. And where do we find that?
Yep, exactly. Just go to positiveequation.com and you'll be able to find it right on the top. It says courses and you can find it.
Awesome. I think that sounds like a great place to start for anybody who is now ads curious and wanting to dip their toe into the water. This is an absolute perfect place for you. So thank you so much, Dana. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Stephanie. Always great chatting with you.